It began with silence. Not the kind that comforts you. The kind that warns you. In the golden halls of the royal palace, where whispers kill faster than swords, she swept the floors like she didn't exist. Her name was Leah. No title. No family. Just a broom, a torn scarf, and eyes that saw everything. And one night when the moon watched and the walls held secrets, he called her the king. Not out of love. Not out of kindness. But because power is greedy, even for warmth it doesn't deserve. No one saw her enter. But they all saw her belly grow. They asked, "Who touched the maid?" She said nothing. He denied everything. And the queen, oh, the queen laughed in her face. "Even lies need beauty," she hissed. "And you're just dirt with a heartbeat." They dragged Leah from the palace, her arms bruised, her soul crushed, her womb still carrying a bloodline meant to be hidden. They called her mad. They called her cursed. They called her a liar. But on the night of the great eclipse, under a storm that split the sky like judgment, she gave birth. Not to revenge. Not to shame. To a boy with eyes like fire and a mark on his chest, the symbol of kingship. He did not cry. He roared. The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days. Mud swallowed her feet as she stood under the broken shelter of an abandoned hut. She wrapped the newborn in the only cloth she had left, her old palace apron. A knock. 3 soft taps. She turned sharply, clutching the child tighter. "Old woman. Leah, they say you birthed the devil." She didn't answer. She just stared. The baby's tiny fist gripped her scarf like it understood everything. "Old woman. The mark on his chest, it's real, isn't it?" Leah stepped closer into the candlelight. The old woman gasped. "Old woman," whispers. "The royal flame. I haven't seen it since the old king died." Leah, calm, broken. "They threw me out like trash, but the gods didn't." She looked down at her baby. His eyes were open wide and burning gold in the darkness. Back at the palace, the king paced alone in the hall of mirrors. His hands shook, not from regret but fear. "King," to his reflection. "If the child lives, the prophecy lives." Just then, the queen entered, her dress soaked from the storm, her eyes dark with fury. "Queen. You fool. You said it was just a maid." Now the kingdom whispers of signs, of marks, of fire in a baby's eyes. "King," hissing. "There is no child. She's nothing. A mistake." But far from the palace, the fire was growing. The child wasn't sickly or weak. He didn't cry like others. He watched. He listened. And every time thunder cracked in the sky, he smiled. "Leah," to her baby. "They fear you already. They should." Because the boy wasn't just the king's son. He was the storm they tried to bury. And now, the crown would find him. Leah looks at the glowing spiral mark on the baby's chest, faint, pulsing like a heartbeat of flame beneath the skin. "Leah," softly. "Prophecy. What prophecy? I was just a maid. I cleaned their floors." The old woman stands slowly. Her eyes don't leave the child. Old woman, voice distant, as if remembering. The mark of Kiara appears only once every 100 years. When the kingdom's bloodline is no longer pure. When greed sits on the throne, and truth is born in exile. Leah, voice breaking. "They threw me out like garbage. They said he was filth." Old woman. Because they knew. The king knew. That mark means he's not just royal. He's chosen. Thunder booms above. The baby blinks but still doesn't cry. Suddenly a sound outside. Hoofbeats. Quick. Sharp. Getting closer. The old woman's eyes widen. "Old woman," whispers. "They found you." Leah. No one followed me. No one even looked my way." A window shatters. An arrow thuds into the wooden wall inches from the child. Old woman, shouting. "Go! Take the back path. Through the trees. There's an old hunter, Eric. He owes me. Find him." Leah grabs the baby, wraps him tight. Her hands shake, but her eyes are fierce now. "Leah," to the child. "You're not dying tonight. You haven't even begun." Leah runs. Mud splashes her legs. Her cloak flaps wildly behind her. She doesn't look back. Behind her, torches glow in the mist. Shadows follow. The sound of dogs barking. Metal clanking. Riders shouting. The storm roars. Leah whispers, running. If the world wants to kill you, then you must live. Not for revenge, but for something greater. She slips. Falls. Mud everywhere. The baby doesn't cry. She looks at him, his eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Leah, smiling despite the fear. You're not like them. You're fire. Through the trees, a faint flicker of flame, someone camping. Leah stumbles forward. Stop right there. Eric steps out of the darkness. Bow in hand, knife at hip, eyes sharp. Eric. Who runs through this forest in a storm carrying a child? Leah. The one trying to keep the next king alive. She reveals the baby. Eric steps closer. Sees the mark. His eyes narrow. Eric, softly. Kiara's flame. He lowers his weapon. Eric. Follow me. But know this, if they're hunting you, they'll burn everything in their path. A secret underground chamber torchlit, deep in rock and silence. Leah sits, baby in her lap, while Eric paces nearby. Eric. They've killed for less. They'll send bounty hunters, traitors, even their own blood. To them, your son isn't a child. He's a threat to a throne built on lies. Leah. Then let him be a threat. She looks down at the child, now asleep in her arms. Leah, calmly. Let him be everything they fear. The queen's words still hung in the air like the smoke from the torches lining the walls. The king stood motionless, his eyes locked on hers. No one dared breathe too loudly. 5 cloaked advisors stared down at the polished wood of the council table, unsure whether to support her offer or fear it. The queen didn't blink. Her voice, calm but venomous, cut through the tension. She humiliated me before your court, before your guests, before your own guards. And now she hides with a child that carries your blood and not mine. That child is not just a threat to your throne, it is a stain on my crown. The king narrowed his eyes. He stepped closer to her, so close the firelight shimmered between their faces. You want the child dead? He asked, his voice like gravel. She nodded slowly. I want her erased. Both of them. Erased from memory, from record, from prophecy. A low, nervous cough came from one of the advisors. If I may, your majesty, if the mark is real, if this is the flame, then. Destroying the child could, he faltered, unable to finish. The queen turned her glare on him, and he shrank into silence. The king raised a hand. Enough. We cannot afford hesitation. If this child lives and rises, the people will rally to him. Not out of loyalty, but out of belief. Belief is dangerous. It spreads faster than truth. The queen took a deep breath and stepped back. Then give me the Black Riders. Let me speak with Captain Nyoro. No more council meetings. No more whispers. Just fire and silence. The king stared at her for a long moment. Then finally, with a slow nod, he spoke the words no one dared expect. So be it. Take the riders. The hunt begins now. Her lips curled into a wicked smile as she turned sharply and exited, her black robe sweeping the floor like shadows trailing a ghost. Outside, rain had begun to fall, softly at first, as the queen descended the grand staircase into the courtyard. Soldiers snapped to attention. The Black Riders stood mounted, still as statues, their faces hidden by obsidian masks, their cloaks glinting wet in the torchlight. She walked straight to the captain, a tall man with a long scar slicing across his brow. Nyoro, she said. He tilted his head. You have one mission. No witnesses. No survivors. The child dies. Nyoro nodded once and raised a fist. The riders wheeled around, hooves crashing into the wet stone as they vanished into the night like a storm unleashed. The queen stood in the rain, eyes fixed on the gate long after it closed. Her voice was low, barely more than a whisper to herself. I will not be remembered as the queen who let a maid's child take her place. Deep within the forest, the wind howled through the trees like ancient spirits calling out. Eric moved swiftly, his steps silent even on damp leaves. Behind him, Leah followed, clutching the baby to her chest. Her feet bled, her body ached, but she said nothing. The baby's head rested against her heart, his tiny fingers gripping her cloak as if anchoring himself to life. They reached a rocky ledge. Below, hidden by fog, a narrow entrance carved into the hillside. Eric pulled back a curtain of vines, revealing the mouth of a cave. "This is where I bring ghosts," he said. Leah looked at him. "What do you mean?" He stepped aside, gesturing for her to enter. "People the kingdom wants to forget. People like you." The cave swallowed them whole. Inside, the walls glowed orange from scattered torches. A few quiet souls sat near the fire, faces worn, eyes cautious. Mothers. Widows. Old soldiers. One boy no older than 10 stood sharpening a knife that was too big for his hands. They looked up as Leah entered, some startled by the child in her arms. Eric stepped forward. "She's under my protection now," he said. "And so is the flame." A silence fell. The baby opened his eyes. A woman gasped. "They're gold," she whispered. "No," another man corrected her. "They're fire." Leah sat down slowly, unwrapping the cloth from the baby's chest. The glowing spiral throbbed faintly beneath his skin, pulsing with every heartbeat. One man backed away in fear. Another fell to his knees and began to pray. "I thought it was only a tale," he muttered. "That the flame would never return." Leah looked around, her voice low but clear. "Believe what you want. But I'm not here to be your miracle. I'm here to keep him alive." At the palace, the king stood alone in the great hall, staring up at a massive painting of his royal lineage. Faces of old kings looked down on him with eternal pride or silent judgment. He clenched his jaw. Behind him, a servant approached quietly. "Your Majesty," the boy said, trembling. "There's news from the eastern villages. One healer claims to have seen the child. He says the mark is real." The king turned slowly. "Did you silence him?" The boy hesitated. "My lord, he's very old. The people already heard." The king raised a hand. The boy stopped speaking. "Double the reward," the king said. 10,000 coins. "And tell them this, whoever brings me the child's head earns a title, land, and a place at my table." In the far countryside, posters began appearing nailed to trees, doors, and tavern walls. The drawing was rough but clear: a woman in rags, holding a baby. Red letters dripped like blood beneath it. "Wanted dead or alive. Child bearing the mark. Reward. 10,000 gold coins." And so the hunters came. Greedy men. Desperate mothers. Bandits. Even nobles in disguise. All chasing the same prize: one infant, born in exile, with a spiral of fire beneath his skin. But Leah was no longer running. That night, as the fire flickered in the cave, she laid the baby down and stood before the small group gathered around. Her voice didn't shake. "They think he is weak. That because he is small, he can be erased. But fire starts small, too. And when it spreads, it does not ask for permission." Eric met her gaze. "You're not just protecting him anymore, are you?" She shook her head. "I'm preparing him." The storm outside gathered strength, but inside the cave, something brighter burned: hope, sharpened by fury. The boy slept peacefully, unaware of the hunt, the danger, the prophecy. But the flame on his chest pulsed brighter that night. As if it, too, was waking up. The storm above raged louder, but inside the cave, the world was still. Leah sat beside the fire, her eyes on her child. He hadn't made a sound in hours, only blinked, watched, and gripped her finger with a strength that didn't belong to someone so new to life. Eric stood near the cave entrance, his hand on the hilt of his blade, listening to every rustle beyond the trees. His instincts were sharp, trained in exile, and tonight they screamed of something approaching. "They'll come through the southern ridge," he muttered. "How do you know?" Leah asked. "They always do. It's open ground. Makes them feel powerful before they kill." She nodded slowly. "Then we won't be there." Eric turned, surprised. "You're not running again." "No," she said calmly. "We're moving. But not because I fear them. Because I know what they fear. She reached into the folds of her cloak and pulled out a strip of old cloth, a faded palace banner, torn from the throne room floor the day she was cast out. I took this, she said. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I wanted to remember how much power can lie to itself. Eric stepped forward, looking her in the eyes. You're becoming more than a mother, Leah. I didn't choose to, she replied. They chose it for me when they made my son an enemy. Outside, branches cracked under heavy boots. In the far distance, a dog barked twice then stopped. Eric's eyes narrowed. They've entered the woods. From the cave walls, silent hands moved quickly. The people there, once only survivors, now followed Leah's voice. They packed, doused flames, covered footprints. This was no longer a hiding place. It was a beginning. The child stirred in his wrappings, as if aware of the movement around him. His chest glowed faintly. A whisper of heat passed through the room. Torches that had just been extinguished flickered back to life, only for a moment before fading again. Leah felt it in her palms. Her son's warmth. Eric watched with narrowed eyes. I've seen magic, he whispered. But this is something older. They left before the riders arrived. Through tunnels only the exiled knew, through riverbeds and broken roots, they vanished deeper into the forgotten parts of the forest, the kind even kings avoided. By the time the Black Riders reached the cave, it was cold, silent. Only ashes remained where fire once was. Captain Nyoro crouched beside the faint imprint of a child's foot in the dirt. He picked up a still warm stone and dropped it. She's learning, he said. Behind him, one of the riders lit a torch and revealed words carved into the wall. You took everything from me. Now I raise the one who will take everything from you. Nyoro read it twice. Then again. He stood slowly, face hidden behind black steel. She's not just running, he said darkly. She's planning. The queen would not be pleased. But far from the palace and its poisoned halls, far beyond the gold-soaked lies, a fire was growing, not from hatred, but from something deeper. Destiny. And soon the kingdom would feel it. Not as a prophecy, but as judgment.